Okay, we're here in the offices of CSP Conlutas with Fabio Bosco in Sao Paulo, Brazil. We're just starting this interview again. Fabio, if you can, we were just talking about the Sao Paulo City train strike of 2014, of which you're a member of the union and you participated in the strike. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences? Was there picket lines and how did that develop?
Well, during that strike we had picket lines both in the maintenance centers, but we also organized picket lines inside the stations that were the terminal where supervisors were replacing train operators and operating the trains. But what happened? We organized a group of strikers. We entered the stations and we talked to the supervisors. Then we convinced them not to operate the trains. The security body was on strike as well. So the company had to call the police, and then the police came. And when the police came, it was a riot police. For the first time they entered the subway stations here in São Paulo. When they gave the warning that they would attack in 10 minutes, the first time we decided to, after 8 or 9 minutes, we decided to leave. But another station where another group of strikers were in the picket line, the riot police attacked before the 10 minutes. And so it was hell because it was a subterranean station. Underground station. And well, tear gas, effect bombs, everything was there in the station. The station remained closed for the whole day. So we had this experience with the picket line, the picket lines. We believe that it was important for us to get to the workers that were not on strike. The broad majority were on strike, broad majority. But with some workers, it was possible to make it work small sections of the lines of the subway of São Paulo. So that was our experience with picket lines here.
Can you talk just on that issue? The union was talking about safety, that it was unsafe for the trains to be operated by these supervisors, and talk about why it was unsafe in terms of the maintenance and also because of the skills of the supervisors.
The point is that the supervisors had some training to operate the trains, but they don't do it on daily basis, not only on weekly basis or monthly basis. They never operate trains. And so what happens? It's definitely unsafe for the commuters to trains being operated by people that okay, they got some training, but they don't do it. They don't have the daily work that allows you to operate it properly. Well, the company knows that, and that's why they never operate the trains from the terminals where plenty of people use the subway here in São Paulo. So they just operate symbolically much smaller sections of the lines, so the trains were empty. The interval, the gap between one train and the other was much larger. But even so, we believe that the governor of São Paulo, when he gave orders to the trains to be operated, he was putting at risk all the commuters that were using the subway those days.
Okay. One of the things that the union was trying to do, as I understand it, was gain support from the public. Of course, the governor was too, in opposition to the workers. And one of the things that we have seen from afar is that your union called for opening the turnstiles of having a free fare. Can you talk about that? Explain what the union was thinking and what ended up happening with it.
Well, when we were discussing to go on strike, immediately the governor of São Paulo resorted to the courts to oblige us to operate the trains despite of the fact we would be on strike. And so, in the courts, we proposed that, okay, we operate the trains, but the fare would be free for all commuters of São Paulo while we were on strike, so that it would put pressure on the company to make the bargaining with us. And of course, we told the media about this, and we had an open letter that we delivered to commuters in the trains. And it was a popular issue, I can tell you, because commuters were definitely in favor of that. They would have the transport and they would not have to pay for it. So that was perfect for them. But the governor of São Paulo said that he would not allow that, and he did not. So we went on strike.
Well, one thing we didn't get to talk about a little bit is your job. You've been being what we might call in the United States a customer assistant. One thing, we have crowded trains, but I don't know if it's anywhere near as bad as here. Can you talk about some of the actual things that you do as a worker and some of the problems and concerns that you help the passengers with in your job, just briefly?
Well, we do everything in the station. We can sell tickets, we take care of the turnstiles. If someone is feeling bad inside the trains, we stop the trains, we take this person from inside, we provide primary care for them. If someone commits suicide, we need to go under the trains to pick up the remains. We do everything that happened in the station. The ones that are working there must do the job. That's it.
It's hard work. Okay, I want to switch topics to the Workers' Federation that your union is part of, FENAMETRO. Can you talk to workers in the United States about this? How does it work?
Well, here in Brazil, the labor system is based on local unions, okay? Differently from the US. In the US, you have national or international unions with locals that are subordinated to this national or international leadership body. Here, no, the power is with the local unions. And so what the local unions do is that they got together with others and they build federations. So the Federation of Subway Workers, Metro Workers, it gathers 8 unions across the country, and it's an independent, militant labor federation. That's it.
Okay, so you have been able to visit the United States. Can you explain some of the differences, explain some of the differences between how unions work in Brazil and the United States? For instance, in the United States, only about 10% of workers have a union. Most unions have an arrangement with the companies, the government, and the banks to automatically take union dues out of a worker's paycheck. How does that work in Brazil, and how do you win or convince workers to join the union and stay in the union?
Okay, something else which is different is that in the US, in the private sector, you have the closed shop. We don't have it like this in Brazil. In Brazil, it's like this. Every worker that has a regular hiring by a company, any company, he must have one union, one and only one union. So, but the affiliation to the union is not compulsory. So the worker decides if he affiliated or not to the union, he or she. So that's one difference. The level of affiliation here in Brazil is something around 30% of the workforce. They are affiliated to the union. Some unions have a much larger level of affiliation. For instance, the union I take part, which is the Subway Workers Union, in the operation and maintenance and security, we have a level of affiliation of 90%. But among clerks, something around 30%. It's much lower. Well, so that's one difference. The issue of having the dues discounted directly in the paycheck, in general, it's part of the contract. So the companies must do that. But sometimes, as part of a backlash against labor, they decided not to do it. So the unions must organize themselves in such a way to collect dues.
Okay, so I want to switch to the organization that we're here. We're in downtown Sao Paulo. We're in the headquarters of CSP Conlutas. We have a few questions about that. So first, when was CSP Conlutas formed?
Well, it was formed in 2003. It started as a coordination to fight back the pension reform of public employees that was being carried out by a new federal administration led by the Workers' Party. The president was Lula da Silva, who was and is the main labor leader in the history of Brazil. But his administration decided to carry out this pension reform. Federal public employees went on strike for 40 days, and the National Coordination of Struggles against this reform started there as a coordination, and later it became a labor federation.
Okay, so today, about how many unions and other organizations have delegates that represent workers as part of Conlutas? About how many workers total are represented through these delegates?
Well, there are something around 200 organizations affiliated to CSP Conlutas. 90% of them are labor, and 10% of them are other social movements like homeless movement, landless movement, movements for women's rights, black rights, gay rights, and student movement as well. So despite of the fact that the broad majority of this federation is labor, we also accept other social movements that fight for democratic rights or against oppression. There are 200 organizations affiliated to CSP Conlutas, and if you put this all together, the membership of all these organizations, it will be something around 2 million people.
Very good. And you said that it formed out of the National Coordination of Struggles against the pension reforms, and so much of those organizations naturally joined in the beginning. Okay, can you talk about how Conlutas is organized? So how does a new group or a group of individuals join rather? How do delegates get chosen or elected? You know, how are decisions made? How often do you meet? What are some of the main goals? Some of those.
Okay. First, CSP Conlutas is a militant labor and people's federation. It's independent from all bosses and all governments. Political parties, if a member is affiliated to a political party, there is no problem, but political parties have no representation inside the federation. What else? We had Congress every 2 years, and the national coordination meets every 2 months. This national coordination, well, every group, every organization that is affiliated to CSP Conlutas, they elected people for both the Congress and the national coordination. So if, for instance, a union decides to join CSP Conlutas today, it has the right immediately to send delegates, 1, 2, 3, it all depends on the size of the organization, to the national coordination and delegates to the Congress.
Okay, so congresses happen about how frequently, and how frequently do national coordinating meetings occur?
Well, Congress every 2 years, national coordination every 2 months.
Okay, and so how does a new, let's talk about if a union does not vote in toto with its top leadership to join, if there is an opposition or opposition caucus to the union, could they participate, and how would that happen?
Yes, they can participate, and they take part in the election. Okay, they lose the election, so the proportion that of the voting they got in the election is the same proportion of representation that we have regarding Conlutas. So everyone is accepted, be a whole union or part of the leadership or an opposition caucus, all of them may affiliated to CSP Conlutas, but when it's part of the leadership only or opposition caucus, they represent the proportion. They have a proportional representation to the voting they got in the elections.
Okay. Now you had said that students and other people's movements could participate, but the organization tries to have its focus on workers. Is there a bylaw or a structure that makes sure that this organization is centered on the working class?
Well, regarding the students, there is a limit that in the decision-making bodies, I mean the Congress, the National Coordination, you have a limit of 10% of student representation. So you cannot have more than that. We don't have, but just in case many student bodies decide to affiliate, all of them combined cannot be more than 10% that any decision-making body in the federation.
Okay, so one thing that will be new to a lot of American workers is one part of this organization, if you could explain, that you have an executive committee. You have some of the top leaders that do some of the work in between your bi-monthly or every 2-month meetings, but they are restricted. They have to do certain things and they cannot do others. Could you explain how that works and why? Why is it that workers have chosen this?
Well, we have frequent national coordination meetings to take the main decisions. So the executive body must carry out these decisions. Unless something sudden happens that you need to take a decision, the executive secretary must take a decision. They always try to leave all main decisions to the national coordination.
Okay. All right. We're just going to take a break.